The bridge of the Defiant Hope hummed quietly as it approached the massive space station orbiting the dead star called Terminus. Captain Hyan Wu stood near the viewport, watching the structure grow larger. It looked like a giant wheel made of metal and light spinning slowly in the darkness. Inside that station, 47 alien species made decisions that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. Ambassador Jiwan sat in her chair, reviewing documents on her tablet. She had represented Earth at the Galactic Council for 3 years now. Usually, council meetings were boring affairs about trade routes and mining rights. But today felt different. The emergency summons had arrived without explanation, and the tone of the message had been cold. "We're being hailed," said Lieutenant Minho from the communications station. "Put it through," Hyan Wu replied. A tall reptilian creature appeared on the screen. His scales were deep purple, and his eyes were yellow with black slits. This was Overseer Valth, leader of the Valthrine Empire and current head of the council. He did not smile, though Hyan Wu doubted the creature could smile even if he wanted to. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 17. Ambassador Jiwan will proceed directly to the council chamber. No delays will be tolerated." The screen went black before Hyan Wu could respond. "Friendly as always," muttered Jiwan, standing up and smoothing her formal diplomatic robes. They were dark blue with silver trim, representing Earth's colors in this galactic community. 20 minutes later, Jiwan walked through the corridors of Terminus Station. The halls were enormous, built to accommodate species of all sizes. A massive slug-like creature slithered past her, leaving a trail of slime that cleaning robots quickly removed. 3 bird-like aliens flew overhead, their wings barely fitting in the space. Jiwan had grown used to these sights, but they still amazed her sometimes. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in ascending rows. Each seat was customized for the species that occupied it. Jiwan's seat was small and simple, located in the back row with the other newer members. The ancient species, those who had been in space for thousands of years, sat in the front rows closest to the central speaking platform. As Jiwan took her seat, she noticed something unusual. The chamber was completely full. Every species had sent their representative. That never happened unless something major was being discussed. Overseer Valth slithered onto the central platform. His species moved on dozens of small legs hidden beneath their long bodies. He raised his clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Members of the Galactic Council," Valth began, his voice amplified throughout the room. "We gather today to address a serious matter concerning our newest member, the humans of Earth." Jiwan felt her stomach tighten. All eyes in the chamber turned toward her. 15 years ago, we welcomed humanity into our council. We shared our knowledge, our technology, and our protection. We believed the humans would contribute to our great alliance. Valth paused, letting his words sink in. "We were wrong." A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing charts and numbers. Jiwan squinted at them, trying to understand what she was seeing. "These records show that humanity has taken far more than they have given. You have consumed resources, used our trade routes, and benefited from our protection. But your contributions have been minimal. You are, in simple terms, parasites feeding on the Council's generosity." Anger flared in Jiwan's chest, but she kept her face neutral. She had been trained for this. Never show emotion in the council chamber. "That's not accurate," Jiwan said, standing up. "Earth has contributed significant silence." Valth's voice echoed through the chamber. "You were not given permission to speak, human. You will listen." Jiwan slowly sat back down. Around the chamber she saw various expressions on alien faces. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked satisfied. A few seemed completely indifferent, Valth continued. "The Council has reviewed Earth's account thoroughly. We have calculated exactly what humanity owes for the privileges you have received. The debt is substantial. However, we are not unreasonable. We will not demand immediate payment." Another holographic display appeared, this one showing Earth itself, rotating slowly above the platform. "Instead, humanity will pay tribute. Annually for the next 100 years, Earth will provide the following to the Council: 40% of your industrial output, 30% of your agricultural production, and 50% of all rare earth minerals mined from your system. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. Yuan's mind raced through the calculations. Those percentages would cripple Earth's economy. Billions of people would suffer. Entire industries would collapse. It would push humanity back centuries in development. This is insane, Yuan said, standing again. You're asking us to. We are not asking, Valth interrupted. The council has already voted? The measure passed 43-3. Earth will comply, or Earth will be expelled from the council and marked as a hostile entity. Do you understand what that means, Ambassador? Yuan understood perfectly. Outside the council's protection, Earth would be fair game for any species that wanted its resources. Humanity's small defense fleet couldn't stop a single council member's military, let alone all of them. I need to consult with my government, Yuan said carefully. You have 7 days, Valth replied. Return here with Earth's formal acceptance of these terms. That is all. The council chamber erupted in conversations as species began discussing this development. Yuan walked out on shaking legs, her mind spinning, back on the Defiant Hope. Captain Haiyan-Wu saw Yuan's expression and immediately ordered the ship to prepare for departure. Within an hour, they were racing back toward Earth at maximum speed. In her quarters, Yuan stared at the official document the council had transmitted. The terms were even worse in detail. They included inspection rights, meaning council ships could enter Earth's system whenever they wanted. They included compliance enforcement measures that were essentially threats of military action. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, only 8 years old. What kind of future would she have in a humanity enslaved to alien masters? No, Yuan whispered to herself. There has to be another way. But as the Defiant Hope jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them home with the worst news in human history, Yuan couldn't imagine what that other way might be. The council had never been successfully challenged. They had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Humanity had 7 days to accept slavery or face extinction. The journey home would take 3 days. That left only 4 days for Earth to make a decision that would determine the fate of humanity forever. The emergency session of the United Nations began exactly 4 hours after the Defiant Hope entered Earth's orbit. President Minji stood at the podium in the assembly hall, looking out at the faces of representatives from every nation on Earth. The room was silent, waiting for her to speak. 3 hours ago, Ambassador Yuan returned from Terminus Station with a message from the Galactic Council. Minji began, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. They have demanded that Earth pay tribute. The terms are severe. If we refuse, they will expel us from the council and likely destroy us. She pressed a button, and the holographic display showed the council's demands. Gasps and angry shouts filled the chamber. Some representatives stood up, yelling in their native languages. Others sat frozen in shock. Silence, please, Minji said firmly. We have 4 days to respond. We need to use this time wisely. In a secure room beneath the assembly hall, a smaller group gathered around a table. This was Earth's crisis team. Ambassador Jiwon was there, still wearing her diplomatic robes. Admiral Seungmin sat across from her, his military uniform crisp and decorated with medals from Earth's brief conflicts in space. Dr. Taeyun, the chief scientist, was reviewing data on his tablet. Intelligence Director Yuna stood near the wall, her expression unreadable. Let's hear it, President Minji said as she entered the room. All options, nothing is off the table. We could comply, suggested General Suyun. It would be hard, very hard, but humanity would survive. We'd be poor, controlled, but alive. We'd be slaves, Admiral Seungmin said flatly. Let's call it what it is. They're not asking for tribute. They're demanding we become their property. Guwan nodded. I've been studying the Council's history. This isn't the first time they've done this. In fact, it's their standard operation. She stood and walked to the display screen, pulling up files she had been reviewing during the journey home. 12 other species in the Council are paying similar tributes. The Council calls them junior members. They have voting rights, but those rights are meaningless. Every vote about their own tributes fails because they're outnumbered. They work, generation after generation, making the older species rich. How long have they been trapped? President Minji asked. The newest has been paying for 70 years. The oldest for nearly 3 centuries. The room fell silent. 300 years of slavery. It was unthinkable. Dr. Taeyun cleared his throat. I've been analyzing the Council's claims about our resource usage. They're lying. Our actual consumption is 40% lower than what they reported. And our contributions, especially in medical research and agricultural techniques, have been worth billions in value. We don't owe them anything. Can you prove that? Yuna asked. I can, Taeyun said. But would it matter? They're not interested in truth. They're interested in control? Yuna stepped forward from the wall. Everyone turned to look at her. The intelligence director rarely spoke in these meetings, but when she did, people listened. I've been running an operation for the past 2 years, Yuna said quietly. It started as routine intelligence gathering on council members, but what we found was shocking. The council isn't just corrupt, it's a protection racket. They artificially create the need for their protection by preventing younger species from developing advanced weapons. Then they demand payment for that protection. She pulled up classified documents on the screen. Intercepted communications between council members discussing resource extraction strategies and optimal pressure points for different species. They've been planning this for humanity since before they invited us to join, Yuna continued. They waited 15 years to make us dependent on council trade routes and technology. Now they're springing the trap. Admiral Sungmin slammed his fist on the table. So what do? We can't fight them. Their fleet is 50 times the size of ours. Even if we had better weapons, which we don't, the numbers alone would crush us. President Minji looked at each person in the room, then her gaze settled on Dr. Taeyun. What about Project Quantum Skip? She asked quietly. The room went completely silent. Project Quantum Skip was Earth's most classified secret. Only a handful of people knew about it. Dr. Taeyun hesitated, then nodded slowly. It works. We tested it last month. A ship can jump from one point to another instantly without using the traditional faster-than-light corridors the Council controls. How is that possible? Jiwan asked. The Council has been in space for thousands of years. They've never developed instant travel. Because they've been using the same technology for so long, they stopped innovating, Taeyun explained. They trade and steal technology from each other, but they don't create new things anymore. Humanity is different. We've only been in space for 50 years. We're still experimenting, still trying crazy ideas. Admiral Sungmin leaned forward. How many ships can we equip with this technology? In 4 days, none, Taeyun said. But we have working prototypes. Small units that can move a person or small object instantly. And the theory suggests we could eventually equip our entire fleet, but that would take months. Months we don't have, General Su-Yun said. President Minji stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city spreading across the landscape. Billions of people going about their lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this room. I won't let humanity become slaves, she said finally, turning back to the group. I don't care if the Council has ruled for 3,000 years. I don't care if they have the biggest fleet in the galaxy. We're going to say no. They'll attack us, General Su-Yun warned. Probably, Minji agreed. But maybe we won't be alone. Director Yuna, those 12 species paying tribute, do they want to be free? Desperately, Yuna said. My agents have made contact with resistance groups on several of their worlds. They're just waiting for someone to make the first move. They know they can't succeed alone. Then we'll make the first move, Minji said. Ambassador Jiwan, when you return to Terminus Station, you're not going to accept their terms. You're going to refuse. And you're going to tell the galaxy exactly what the Council has been doing for 3 centuries. Jiwan felt her heart racing. They'll try to arrest me. Or kill me. That's why you'll have one of Dr. Taeyun's quantum skip devices, Minji said. You'll broadcast the truth to every Council world simultaneously. Then you'll disappear before they can stop you. Admiral Sungnin smiled grimly. And then the real fight begins. Then the real fight begins, President Minji agreed. We're going to bet everything on the chance that other species will join us, that the truth will matter. That freedom is worth fighting for. She looked around the room at her team. We have 4 days to prepare. Let's get to work. As the meeting ended and people rushed off to their assignments, Jiwan stood alone for a moment, looking at the council's demands still displayed on the screen. In 4 days, she would return to Terminus Station and tell the most powerful alliance in the galaxy that humanity refused to be slaves. It was the most terrifying thing she had ever done. But it was also the only choice that mattered. The council chamber was even more crowded than last time. Word had spread across the galaxy that the humans were returning with their answer. Some species wanted to see humanity accept their fate. Others hoped to witness something unexpected. No species had ever refused a council tribute demand. Ambassador Jiwan walked down the central aisle toward the speaking platform. Her assistant, Junior Ambassador Do-yun, followed close behind, carrying a simple metal case. Captain Hin-woo and 4 security officers escorted them. Though everyone knew their weapons would be useless if the council decided to act, Overseer Valth waited on the platform, his yellow eyes fixed on Jiwan around the chamber. Representatives from 47 species watched in silence. Jiwan noticed one alien in particular, a thin creature with blue skin and large black eyes, watching her intently. She recognized the species as Kethrin, one of the 12 tributary races. The alien's expression was hard to read, but Jiwan thought she saw hope in those dark eyes. Ambassador Jiwan, Val said, his voice cold and formal. You return to present Earth's acceptance of the Council's terms. Proceed. Jiwan stepped onto the platform. Do-yun handed her the metal case. She opened it and removed a small data chip, holding it up for everyone to see. Overseer Valth, members of the Council, Jiwan began, her voice clear and strong. I do come with Earth's official response. But first, I would like to share some information that I believe the Council will find interesting. Valth's eyes narrowed. The time for discussion has passed. Present your acceptance. This will only take a few minutes, Jiwan said. She inserted the data chip into the platform's console. I think everyone deserves to see this. Before Valth could object, the holographic display activated. The lights in the chamber dimmed automatically as the presentation began. A voice spoke. Narrated by Dr. Taeyun back on Earth. 317 years ago, the Galactic Council welcomed the Keth species as members. Within 20 years, the Council demanded tribute. The Keth have been paying ever since. Images appeared showing Keth worlds, their cities and people. Then documents appeared, Council records that had been sealed and classified. Messages between Council members discussing how to pressure the Keth into accepting tribute. Fabricated resource audits. Manufactured evidence of debt. 240 years ago, the same pattern repeated with the Vorsh species. Then the Quillen. Then 9 others. The process is always the same. Welcome the new species. Make them dependent? Then trap them in eternal debt. More documents flashed across the screen. Internal Council communications discussing optimal extraction rates and sustainability of tributary populations. Cold, calculated discussions about keeping species productive, but never allowing them to become powerful enough to resist. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouting at each other, some in anger, others in denial. The 12 tributary representatives sat frozen in their seats, seeing their situations exposed to the galaxy for the first time. This is illegal, Valth roared. You have accessed classified council records? This session is terminated. But Jiwan had planned for this. The presentation wasn't just playing in the council chamber. Using quantum skip technology, it was being broadcast simultaneously to every council member world. Billions of citizens across the galaxy were watching the same evidence at the same moment. The evidence speaks clearly, Jiwan continued, her voice rising above the chaos. The Galactic Council is not a partnership. It is a system designed to exploit younger species for the benefit of older ones. Earth was next in line for this exploitation. She looked directly at Valve. "And here is Earth's official response to your demands." The chamber fell silent again. Everyone waited. "We refuse," Jawan said simply. "We will not pay tribute. We will not accept your fabricated debts. We will not allow humanity to be enslaved." Valve's scales turned darker purple, a sign of rage in his species. "You are making a grave mistake, human. The Council's judgment is final. Refusal means expulsion and military action against your world." "Then you should know something else," Jawan said. "Earth offers sanctuary to any species enslaved by this Council. Any tributary race that wishes to be free, we will help them. We will share our technology and stand together against Council tyranny. Arrest them." Valve screamed. "Security, arrest these humans immediately." Armed guards began moving toward the platform from multiple directions. Captain Hyan-Woo and his team raised their weapons, but they were vastly outnumbered. G1 reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, no bigger than a phone. Do-Yun and the security team did the same. "Before you reach us," Jawan said calmly, "you should know that the Defiant Hope left orbit 3 hours ago. It's already back at Earth and we're about to join it." She pressed a button on the device. The air around the human delegation shimmered and bent. Valve lunged forward, his claws reaching for Jawan, but his hands passed through empty space. The humans had vanished. The Council chamber exploded into chaos. Species shouted accusations at each other. The tributary representatives began demanding explanations. Several delegates walked out in protest. Valve stood on the platform, staring at the empty space where the humans had been. In 3,000 years of Council history, nothing like this had ever happened. A species had not only refused a Council edict, but had exposed the Council's darkest secrets to the entire galaxy across the galaxy. On 12 tributary worlds, something remarkable happened. The people who had been enslaved for generations watched the broadcast. They saw humans, a young and weak species, stand up to the Council. They saw the evidence of their own exploitation laid bare on the Keth homeworld. The alien who had watched G1 so intently in the Council chamber stood before a massive crowd in the capital city. His name was Riven, and he was a leader in the Keth resistance movement. "For 300 years we have suffered in silence," Riven shouted to the crowd. "We believed we were alone. We believed resistance was impossible. But today humanity showed us differently. Today they proved that the Council can be defied." The crowd roared in response. Similar scenes were playing out on other tributary worlds. The resistance movements that had been scattered and weak were suddenly energized, back on Earth. G1 materialized in a secure facility alongside her team. Scientists rushed forward to check that the quantum skip devices had worked properly. President Minji was there, watching on monitors as news of the Council chamber incident spread across galactic networks. "It's done," Jiwan said, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "We've just made enemies of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy." "No," Minji replied, pointing at the monitors showing the tributary worlds erupting in protest and celebration. "We've just made friends with everyone they've been oppressing. The Council is about to learn that empires built on exploitation don't last forever." Admiral Sungmin entered the room, his expression grim. "Council forces are mobilizing. Our satellites are detecting fleet movements from multiple member worlds. They're forming an armada. How long do we have?" President Minji asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4 before they reach Earth," Sungmin replied. "But we're also receiving messages. The Keth have launched attacks on Council supply depots in their sector. The Vorsh have seized 3 Council outposts. It's spreading." Jiwan walked to the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, hundreds of warships were preparing to destroy Earth, but also out there, species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up. Inspired by humanity's defiance, the question now was whether it would be enough. Whether truth and courage could stand against the overwhelming power of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, they were about to find out. Admiral Sungmin stood on the bridge of the Earth's Resolve, humanity's flagship and one of only 47 vessels in the entire human defense fleet. Through the viewport, He could see the other ships in formation around Earth. They looked small and fragile compared to what was coming. "Enemy fleet detected," reported Lieutenant Kyung from the sensor station. "Distance, 12 million kilometers enclosing, counting 314 vessels. 314 ships against 47? The numbers were impossible. Even if every human ship was perfect and every shot hit its target, they would be overwhelmed in minutes. "Battle stations," Seung-min ordered calmly. "All ships maintain defensive formation around Earth. Remember your training." On the planet below, billions of people watched the sky, knowing that their fate would be decided in the next few hours. Emergency shelters were full. Evacuation ships were ready to launch if the worst happened. But there was nowhere in the galaxy to run if Earth fell. The Council Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel like a wall of metal and fire. The ships were enormous, some the size of cities. They had been designed to terrify as much as to fight. At the center of the fleet was the Dominion flagship of War Master Thexus, a massive insectoid alien whose species had conquered 17 worlds before joining the Council. "Human vessels," Thexus's voice boomed across all communication channels. "You have committed crimes against the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately and you will be shown mercy. Resist and you will be destroyed." Admiral Seung-min looked at his crew. Young men and women who had joined Earth's defense force hoping to explore the galaxy, not fight for its survival. They deserved better than this. Everyone on Earth deserved better. "This is Admiral Seung-min of Earth Defense. We reject your authority. We reject your so-called justice. And we will defend our home with everything we have?" He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. "Light them up." The human fleet opened fire. Missiles streaked through space toward the Council Armada. But these weren't ordinary missiles. Dr. Taeyun's team had worked day and night, installing quantum skip drives in as many weapons as possible. The missiles disappeared mid-flight and reappeared inside the Council. Fleet's defensive formation, explosions blossomed across space as 20 Council ships were struck before they could react. The Armada's perfect formation shattered into chaos as ships tried to scatter, not understanding how the humans had bypassed their shields. Quantum skip drives detected. Someone shouted on the Dominion's bridge. "They've modified our own faster-than-light technology." War Master Thexus's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Impossible. That technology took us 2,000 years to develop. They've only been in space for 50 years. But impossible or not, the human ships were using it. They appeared and disappeared across the battlefield like ghosts, firing their weapons and vanishing before the Council could return fire effectively. The humans weren't trying to win. They were trying to survive long enough for help to arrive because help was coming on the other side of the galaxy. The Keth species had launched their rebellion 3 weeks ago. Riven commanded a fleet of stolen Council ships, crewed by Keth who had trained in secret for generations, waiting for this moment. They had been attacking Council supply lines and bases, forcing the Council to split its forces. "Jump complete," reported Riven's navigator. "We're at the human system, detecting massive battle in progress." Through the viewport, Riven saw the Earth fleet desperately fighting against overwhelming numbers. Dozens of human ships were already destroyed, floating debris marking where they had made their final stands. "All ships, attack formation," Riven ordered. "Target the Council's command vessels. For 300 years they made us slaves. Today we make them pay." The Keth fleet, 120 ships strong, appeared behind the Council Armada and opened fire. The Council forces, already confused by the human quantum skip tactics, now faced a two-front battle. War Master Thexus screamed orders at his fleet. "Half the Armada, turn and engage the Keth. The rest, press the attack on Earth. Crush them both." But the Council's superiority was crumbling. The Keth ships, though older, were crewed by people fighting for their freedom. The human ships, though smaller, had technology the Council couldn't counter. And then more allies arrived. The Vorsh species jumped into the system with 80 ships. Then the Quillen with 60. Then 3 more tributary species, bringing their own forces to the battle. The enslaved races of the galaxy were rising together, and Earth was the rallying point. Admiral Sung-min watched in amazement as the battlefield transformed. "Get me a channel to all allied vessels," he ordered. When the connection was established, Sung-min spoke quickly. "This is Admiral Sung-min of Earth Defense. Welcome, allies. Transmitting tactical data now. We've learned the Council ships have weak points in their aft shielding. Coordinate your strikes." The battle raged for 6 hours. Space was filled with fire and debris. Ships on both sides fell, their crews dying far from home. The Council fleet, designed to intimidate and overwhelm, found itself fighting enemies who had nothing left to lose. War Master Thexus watched his fleet dissolve around him. He had lost over 200 ships. The rest were damaged or fleeing. The humans had lost 34 of their 47 vessels, but they were still fighting. The tributary species had lost nearly half their forces, but more kept arriving. "Retreat," Thexus ordered finally, the word like poison in his mouth. "All ships withdraw. Return to Council space." The surviving Council ships jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the battlefield to the alliance of freed species. On Earth, crowds poured into the streets, celebrating their survival. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of human crew members had died. Entire ships full of heroes who would never come home. But Earth still existed. Humanity was still free. In orbit, Admiral Sung-min opened a communication channel to all the Allied ships. His face appeared on their screens, exhausted but smiling. "Today, we won more than a battle," he said. "Today, we proved that the Council is not invincible. Today, we showed the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." Rivan of the Keth appeared on the screen, his alien face expressing an emotion remarkably similar to joy. "Admiral Sung-min, the Keth people thank humanity for lighting this fire. We have fought alone for so long. Now we fight together." Similar messages came from the other species. They had all suffered terrible losses, but they have won. The Council's armada, which was supposed to crush Earth as an example to the galaxy, had been defeated. On Terminus Station, the Council held an emergency meeting. Overseer Valth looked at the empty seats where tributary species had once sat. They had all abandoned the Council, joining what some were calling the Free Species Alliance. "This is a disaster," said one Council member, a floating, jellyfish-like creature. "We've lost control of 12 species. Our fleet is shattered. Our authority is questioned everywhere." "It's worse than that," said another member, reviewing intelligence reports. 18 more species are watching this situation. If we look weak, they'll join the humans too. Our entire system of control is collapsing." Valve stared at the holographic display showing the battle's aftermath. A young, weak species with only 50 years in space had done what no one thought possible. They had defied the Council and survived. Worse, they had inspired others to do the same. What do we do? Someone asked. Valve had no answer. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a problem they couldn't solve with threats and military force. The galaxy was changing, and they didn't know how to stop it. Back on Earth, Captain Hyan-Woo was assigned a new mission. Using quantum skip technology, his ship would visit the tributary worlds, evacuating civilians from areas where fighting continued, helping rebuild infrastructure destroyed in the rebellions, carrying food and medical supplies to species who had sacrificed everything for freedom. As his ship jumped toward its first destination, Han-Woo looked at the crew members preparing cargo holds and medical bays. They were tired. They were scared. But they were also hopeful. The war wasn't over. The Council would try again, probably smarter and more ruthless next time. But the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The young species and the enslaved species were no longer alone. They had each other, and they had learned something important. Empires built on fear and exploitation could bleed. They could be hurt. They could be beaten. The fight for a free galaxy had just begun. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Earth, and the galaxy looked completely different. Ambassador Jiwan stood in what used to be called the Council Chamber at Terminus Station, but now it was the Assembly Hall of the Free Species Alliance. The seats had been rearranged so no one sat above anyone else. Every species, regardless of age or power, had an equal voice. 23 species had joined the alliance. The 12 former tributary species were there, freed from their centuries of slavery. 11 other species had left the council voluntarily, disgusted by what they had learned about the system they had been part of. Together, they represented nearly 40% of the galaxy's population. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Jiwan of Earth, announced the session coordinator, a Quillan named Vessel who had once been forced to pay tribute to the council for over a century. Jiwan walked to the center speaking area. She was older now, lines of stress visible on her face. The past 2 years had been hard on everyone, but she stood tall and confident. Members of the Free Species Alliance, Jiwan began. 2 years ago, humanity made a choice. We could accept slavery and live safely, or we could fight for freedom and risk everything. We chose freedom. And you all made the same choice. She gestured to the representatives around her. The Keth chose freedom after 300 years of tribute. The Vorsh after 240 years. Every species here has sacrificed something precious for the right to determine their own future. On a screen behind her, images appeared showing the reconstruction efforts happening across Alliance space. New schools on Keth worlds, hospitals on Vorsh colonies, trade routes connecting species that had once been isolated by council restrictions. Today, I'm proud to announce that Dr. Taeyun's team has completed the quantum skip technology transfer. Jiwan continued. Every Alliance member world now has access to this technology. No species will control travel or trade anymore. We're all free to move and communicate as equals. The Assembly erupted in applause. Quantum skip technology had been humanity's greatest advantage, and they had shared it freely. This single act had done more to build trust in the Alliance than any treaty or agreement. Riven of the Keth stood to speak next. His species had suffered terrible losses in the rebellions, but they had also gained something more valuable than peace: dignity. The Keth people remember the darkness of our slavery, Riven said. But we also remember the day humans told the council they would not submit. That day changed everything. It gave us hope. It gave us courage. Today, the Keth are free, and our children will never know the shame of tribute. On another screen, images showed Keth children playing with human children at a cultural exchange center. Young aliens from different species learning together, something that would have been unthinkable under council rule. President Minji was also at the station, though she rarely traveled off Earth anymore. The stress of leading humanity through 2 years of conflict and reconstruction had taken its toll, but she had insisted on being present for today's session. There's one more matter to address, Minji said, standing before the Assembly. The trials? The room became quiet. This was the difficult topic everyone knew was coming. After the Battle of Earth, the Council had fractured. 15 species, including the Valthrine Empire, had formed what they called the Legacy Council. They claimed to be the true heirs of galactic authority, but without military power to enforce their will, they were mostly just angry voices. 42 council members, including Overseer Valve and War Master Thexus, had been arrested by their own people. Citizens on their worlds, inspired by the rebellions, had demanded justice for 3,000 years of corruption and exploitation. The Free Species Alliance has been asked to conduct war crimes trials for the former council leadership, Minji continued. They face charges of systematic exploitation, falsification of records, and ordering military actions against innocent populations. She paused, looking around the Assembly. These trials will not be revenge. They will be justice. Every accused will have legal representation. Every piece of evidence will be examined. And the verdicts will be decided by judges from multiple species, not by any single government. Ambassador Doyan, who had served as Jiwan's assistant during that first defiant return to Terminus Station, was now the Alliance's chief legal coordinator. He had spent months preparing for these trials, ensuring they would be fair and transparent. The first trial begins next month, Doyan reported. Overseer Valth will face charges related to the Keth tribute system. The proceedings will be broadcast across all Alliance worlds so everyone can see justice being done. The Assembly voted to approve the trial procedures. It was unanimous. Meanwhile, on the outer edges of Alliance space, Captain Hyung-woo commanded the humanitarian fleet. A group of 70 ships from various species, dedicated to helping refugees and rebuilding war-damaged worlds. His current mission was at a Vorsh colony that had been bombed by Legacy Council forces trying to reassert their authority. The attack had failed, but hundreds of civilians had died, and the infrastructure was destroyed. "Deploy the construction teams," Hyun-woo ordered as his ship entered orbit. "Medical personnel to the surface immediately. Food and water supplies are priority one." Over the past 2 years, Hyun-woo had seen terrible things. The cost of freedom had been high. Millions had died in the rebellions and the conflicts that followed. Entire cities had been destroyed. Some species had lost generations of progress. But he had also seen remarkable things. Species that had been enemies under the Council now worked together. Technology was shared freely instead of hoarded. Children from different worlds played together, learning each other's languages and customs. "Captain," said his communications officer, a young Kef named Sivra, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. They're thanking us. They want to know if there's anything they can do to help." Hyung-woo smiled. "Tell them to rebuild their homes and raise their children in freedom. That's all the thanks we need." Back at Terminus Station, the final session of the day brought unexpected news. A delegation had arrived from the Legacy Council, the 15 species still clinging to the old ways. Leading them was a Valthrine diplomat named Kessa, younger than Valth and far less arrogant. The Legacy Council requests permission to address the Assembly. Kessa announced formally. G1, as one of the senior ambassadors, granted permission with some hesitation. "Speak freely. The Alliance values open dialogue." Kessa stepped forward, her scales showing colors that indicated nervousness in her species. "For 2 years, the Legacy Council has insisted we were the rightful authority in this galaxy. We refused to acknowledge the Free Species Alliance. We believed the old ways were correct." She paused, clearly struggling with what she had to say next. "We were wrong. Our own citizens have shown us this. They demand change. They demand justice. They demand to be part of a galaxy built on cooperation, not domination." Kessa pulled out a formal document and held it up for everyone to see. "The Legacy Council hereby requests to dissolve itself and petition for membership in the Free Species Alliance. All 15 species wish to join under your rules and your principles." The Assembly exploded in shock and conversation. No one had expected this. The proud old empires that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were asking to join an alliance created by rebellious tributary species and a young human civilization. President Minji stood and raised her hand for silence. "This is a significant moment. The Alliance will need to discuss this request carefully. But I believe I speak for many when I say we built this Alliance on the principle that every species deserves freedom and equality. If the Legacy Council species truly embrace those principles, then they deserve a chance to prove it." She looked directly at Kessa. "But understand this. Joining the Alliance means accepting its rules. It means facing justice for past crimes. It means treating every species, no matter how young or small, as your equal. Can your people accept that?" Kessa bowed her head, a gesture of respect in her culture. "We can, we must. The alternative is to remain isolated, bitter, and irrelevant while the galaxy moves forward without us. Our young people don't want that future. They want to be part of what you're building here." The Assembly voted to begin negotiations with the Legacy Council species. It would take time. There would be difficult conversations about justice and responsibility, but the fact that it was happening at all showed how much the galaxy had changed. That evening, Jiwan stood alone at an observation window, looking out at the stars. Earth was visible in the distance, a small blue dot among billions of celestial objects. Ambassador Doyun joined her. "Hard to believe it's only been 2 years since we stood in this station and told the Council we refused to be slaves." "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago," Jiwan replied. "So much has changed. So many people have died." Was it worth it? Doyun considered the question carefully. I've spoken to refugees from the tributary species. They tell their children stories about the day humanity said no. They talk about it like it's a legend, a turning point in galactic history. To them, what we did was give them hope when they had none. He gestured to the assembly hall behind them. Look at what we've built. 23 species working together as equals.